it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we're zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that we got in. And that was really that they want me to speak on establishing healthy relationships, really a healthy relationship with yourself, and then furthermore with others after you have experienced this sort of detrimental or emotionally controlling abusive relationship, such as you have endured or experienced with a covert narcissist or a psychopathic individual. And before we get started today, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel, including a lovely viewer that we have who has made repeated donations to the channel. And it is my heartfelt thanks and gratitude for your donation and your correspondence. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to assist you in oftentimes this very specific area and to help you see and receive resources and tools to move forward. And to that, I want to give you an idea of the fact that it is a very serious nature. And we talk about kind of like the before and after effect of being in a narcissist relationship. The sweet you that was before. You might have had excellent credit. You might have had excellent savings. You might have had excellent health. You might have had an excellent outlook on the world. Great, a great profession. Certain things were going excellent in your life, and you kept it all together. And unbeknownst to you, the rug was slowly but surely being pulled out from underneath you. And that is oftentimes through the guise of control, power, and then keeping a facade or a mask very much intact in a relationship, while hitherto you have no knowledge of a covert lack of communication breakdown, taking advantage of your good, kind, sweet nature, and then using that to exploit you, unconsciously taking from you and not giving like in return, not giving you transparency, not giving you honesty, not giving you clarity, and furthermore, not giving you the kind of communication that you deserve. And this can be very, very destructive when we kind of look at the before and after effect of when you're in a relationship with this type of individual. And it's kind of like if you look at the you that was before, there was an innocence, a naivete, a certain spontaneity, or perhaps, you fell head forward and you could not get bearing on the relationship because of how rapidly maybe it was going, or the ability with which they were able to carry out lies or indiscretions unbeknownst to you, hiding, drinking, spending, relationships, etc., and just not being responsible and accountable. And so it was really the depth with which they have concealed and lived a duplicitous life, or a double, basically what is like a double life, is very, very, very devastating. And oftentimes they are able to accomplish this by taking from others, taking their time, energy, affection, money, you name it. And then furthermore, what even hurts is that they end up, walking away relatively, seemingly unscathed, laughing, look who we got one over on. So not only that, it's just not your typical relationship that went awry. It's not just a typical relationship that went south. It was, where maybe you can part amicably, as friends, realizing, that you're just two different personality types, and that's okay. There are all sorts of relationships that end in that way, that, basically they dissolve because it's just, there's not a meeting of minds, of hearts. It's just, you have different things that you want, different things that you enjoy, and it's just not a good fit. So you come to some sort of reasoning and an agreement, and then it's just like, okay, and then things are able to proceed a little bit more amicably. But it's definitely life-shattering when this individual leaves you hurt, scarred, maimed, and the worse off. And then furthermore, how do you pick yourself up and begin to understand even what healthy relationships look like, feel like, and how to trust again? Because most people will oftentimes then, hitherto after that, push people away, push life away, push experiences away, And basically, I don't want to say it's an all or nothing, but it's like, it's time to really hunker down. It's really time to bunk up and get a grip on what has happened and get things sorted out, because you almost have like a shell shock experience where, never again is now, feeling and philosophy of life. And so really you do have to shore up the brimstone. You do have to get the spackle. You do have to get the mortar out and lay yourself a very, very solid, firm, strong foundation in knowing what you are about, and kind of really what I understand is experience of your own internal real estate, your own internal goodness, your own internal self-worth, and who you are as a person. And that not only do you deserve, but you demand to be around people who will respect and treat you with empathy. So it's not just you should, but it becomes a must. And for you to arrive at that core strength, that core juice, is really a very powerful thing. And oftentimes people will shy away because it is so powerful for them to pick up the momentum and begin to go one step at a time, one value at a time, one belief at a time, one self-trust at a time, and then open up the curtain, so to speak, and say, okay, is there a good world out there? Or do I still have, a weakness? Am I still vulnerable? Am I still, walking like a walking wound? Do I have a woundedness about me where I could be taken advantage of, where I'm, I don't have my sea legs strengthened up yet. I'm still a little wobbly. I'm still a little shaky. I have to protect. Like I'm the one in the bunch. Like I'm the, in the pecking order, I'm like the chicken with like a little bit of blood showing. Like I don't want to show my wound because there are going to be people who will, unfortunately, exploit and, hurt you there. So you do have to strengthen up and then come and do that internal work. And when we talk about internal work, it is very much a purging and a cleansing experience, and it takes a whole lot of self-admittance. It takes a whole lot of going, wow, I made an error of judgment. I had hitherto catapulted myself into this relationship where it's kind of like you have rocket fuel that had propelled you into the relationship based on how you thought it should be, what you wanted it to be, your dreams, desires, the illusion, not wanting to face the other side, getting so entrenched in it, having property together, relationships, family, etc. There become a lot of, complex layers, which, you don't want to upset this, so you don't do that. And so you live in a denial. You live in a perturbed and hurt state in order to work it through, but it's very difficult to work it through. It's very hard to learn the skills of the jungle, if you don't have time to, see the jungle. In other words, it's hard to step out of the muck and then get a clear perspective. You're kind of like in a quicksand moment. So it can be very difficult, and the work oftentimes has to be paid the ultimate price, where it's like you have to realize, cut your losses, and saying, okay, and knowing, coming to a space of certainty and knowing, and even if it's speaking up and recognizing this and allowing yourself to hear this or feel this for the first time, even though you don't want to hear it, even though it hurts, but this was not good for you. This, you could be responsible for having aggravated or perpetuated the situation. And oftentimes that is the gravest admittance, to say, but even though I was too weak, I didn't have the the skills, the tools, the ability to leave. I did not have that ability, but it's been like a growing pain. It's like a little tiny seed that's pushing with all its might to push up through, the seed, the soil, but eventually it sprouts out, but it's like that little embryonic state that it really has to break through its shell. That is like the hard work, and then it does get easier. But you have to stay with the admittance, the acknowledgement, and the acceptance long enough to understand what has happened and then go, no more. I mean, sometimes it has to get to the point where the pain is great enough and one suffers health issues. How many people have suffered grave health issues at the expense of this relationship? Drinking too much, self-medicating, drugging, gambling, having a very, very self-sabotaging or self-destructive lifestyle, not getting to your work on time, not saving but spending to keep the narcissist relationship there or intact, or prevent an an outburst or an outrage. So the health issues, how many of you have suffered health issues? I had a viewer who, to please this narcissist who always wanted her to have tan lines, would bake and bake and bake in a tanning bed, to give herself these tan lines that this narcissist, just look how damaging this person would be willing to put themselves, basically lay themselves on the train tracks and just say, yes, run over me, this is worth it. Do you see how the mind and the gaslighting starts to wreak havoc with your judgment-making ability? So, you have to realize that there's nothing you could have done. There's nothing wrong with you. It just gives you an idea of the strength of the power of the gaslighting that it has an effect on people. And it has nothing to do with you. Chances are you were targeted for your very ability to serve and be empathetic and caring and giving and adapt. But you had adapt to, your ability, your very wonderful and talented ability to adapt and metamorphosize and become, was given in the wrong direction, what I call negative orderly direction thinking, which is set into effect by these relationships. So I very much call it negative orderly direction thinking, or NOD thinking. In other words, it is not good for you, but you succumb, you give in, you're kind of like on the treadmill. You just can't, it's the motor is going and it's really, you can't get off. So it is, very, very difficult. Think about the health issues that you have experienced. How many of you have suffered health-wise, financially? Look at, the keys to your own kingdom that you have given away. I have had many viewers who have told me, of how they have lost their businesses. They have lost, property, their name of property. They've had to move. They've, destroyed a lot of their financial integrity because of this relationship, because they were so in the gaslighted stage. They were so caught up in that illusion that they were feeding their fears and feeding the relationship. And this person had no intention of being with them for the long run. They had no ability. They weren't marriage or, love material. They were not of that cloth. So, people make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you're flawed, that there's something wrong with you. It just means you were in basically the grips of a very toxic and very powerful relationship where these individuals use that emotional pull to distort one's thinking and get you to believe otherwise. And as I was discussing previously, there's an unconscious need with which they will adhere to people and select them with which to, fulfill this. In other words, easy target, low-hanging fruit. The narcissists and the psychopaths of the world will say these people were easy to manipulate. We'll know more, hence the before and after. So you really do have to shore up the, shore up the brim wall. Really become very clear on your internal self-worth and your standards. And I am getting really, really in touch with the fact that you need to protect yourself. Do you want to end up and spend all your time in front of Judge O'Connor, sorting through legal problems? Do you want to have a lot of your money go to legal fees? Do you want to have yelling matches? Do you want to destroy your self-respect? Because if you don't realize that is where oftentimes these relationships head, they bring out the worst of you, but they can also bring out the best of you. Hence is the lessons learned. And it's like getting very firm, getting into the never again. I will never again be derailed by this. I will never again be angered by this type of manipulation. I will never again become depressed by this. I will never again experience the self-rebuke that I have encountered. I am developing self-respect. I am developing integrity. I'm developing a backbone. I am developing a shock absorber system where I can see clearly where the bumps and the potholes are, and I am so out of there. I can see it clearly. I can see how there's like human potholes where if you drive into them, you're just fit for an abyss of despair. And it gets very dark, it gets very scary, it gets very terrorizing, and you don't know which way is up. So it is holding firm to that which is within you and knowing what is up for you. Up meaning positive, orderly direction thinking, knowing what you want to become, knowing what you want to feel. These are the basics. You need to get back to the basics. I want to feel loved. I am lovable. I want to be reminded that I am lovable. I desire now and am surrounding myself with people, opportunities, and experiences which are reminding me of this, validating of me of this, and really reinforcing, strengthening, and accumulating through repetition and experience and getting the momentum of building my healthy self. And you can only do this by making the decision, making the choices, and then getting a vision, separating from the fight or flight where you're acting out of fear and feeling unequal in a relationship and feeling, then alchemizing, becoming really sort of feeling like you are the it. You are making the call. You draw the line. You are enforcing your I am and your respect at all times. Even if that's where it begins, it is developing that self-respect and having that through your, calling that into your day on a daily basis and learning how to put on the brakes anytime any person, event, or situation starts to encroach on those, tries to break that down, treats you as if you don't know better. Excuse me, you're going to adopt a civil tone or we're not going to continue the conversation. You learn how to come up with statements like that. No, thank you. I can take care of this for myself. No, thank you. I can do this for myself. No, thank you. That does not appeal for me right now. And you'll find that with the people who are manipulative, if you tell them no, well, they'll then come back with a rebuke. Well, that's, they'll try to insult you. They'll try to put that little bit of salt in the wound. That will show you very clearly that these people do not have your best interests, your self-respect in mind, your connection to Source and God, which is a God-given inalienable right. I don't care if you're working in a rice paddy. I don't care if you're working in a rail yard. I don't care if you're stuffing envelopes. I don't care what you're doing, but your connection to Source is an inalienable human right. You have a human consciousness. That is where you belong. And wherever you are in the spectrum is you're doing God's work. And anyone who tries to diminish you, it's a clear sign that you need to really raise your standards and say no more. And you learn then how to really put your foot down very firmly, not out of anger, not out of hatred, but out of necessity. And so once you're able to do that, then you can then enforce yourself and then find that you're going to surround yourself with other people who are in a healthy bond. And so learning, retraining yourself, reconditioning yourself. What is a healthy relationship? Get a vision for it, get a feel for it, get a scent for it, get a taste for it, get a, what it hears like, get all your senses, and then really what I call resensitizing. And, much of my book is really about that, and how to retrain and create a new experience so you know what a healthy bond is, and you know what it isn't. Like you can sort it out, like, nope, yes, no, yes, no, yes. I mean, you really become good at sorting out the experiences, and you see the people who are on that path or on the path, and it's very important to realize that there's all sorts of phenomenal, incredible people who you can take in, who will operate and love you ecstatically, energetically, and excitingly on that self-respect level. So all the juice, all the excitement, all the dream, all the good life, the sweet life is still there in the positive and not in the negative. So realizing that it does exist is oftentimes that sense of belief and faith that you need, and then working towards cultivating that. It takes work. It takes sorting out. It takes a pen and paper. It takes pictures. It takes images. It takes internal self-talk, internal dialogue. It comes with shedding away the old, the forgiveness, the air of judgment, the times of humility and humbleness, the valley moments where you go, oh, I made a grave mistake. But your admittance right there, even though it's the hardest work, it's the most rewarding, because then you've got a background, you're letting that go. And as soon as you admit the hardest things, you're opening up the space for the best things to flood into your life. So the very, very most painful things that you've been wanting to push away are the very things, that you need to experience to bring you there. Even if it's very slow, little by little, over time, over the next month, 6 months, 1 year, you will begin to pull and allow them in. You might need to be very self-protective and say, I am going in self-protection mode. I'm not making mistakes. I'm going in self-protection mode. I'm not making mistakes. So you then begin to explore and then say, no, a little bit of this, no, a little bit of that, a little bit more of this, not so much, yes. And then you begin to cultivate a new, alchemized you that can step out in the world, be decisive, and say, no, I see where manipulation is. Wow, I can really see how people are being sucked in now. I have a higher consciousness. And going out and approaching life with this new learned perspective, the higher consciousness, which has alchemized you from the relationship, is perhaps your most valuable perspective of all. And even though it takes a lot of time, energy, and work, it'll radiate, it'll be as strong, really, that as a strong core of you that will always be there for you and will keep you safe. You just need to keep tapping into it, trusting it little by little, getting a little bit of your toes, feet wet, and then experiencing life with your choice, your decisions. What is your positive orderly direction moving forward? And then scheduling them in, writing it into your recovery appointment book, in your recovery journal, and keeping a measure of how this is going, because you are the one to now reinforce and enforce your positive orderly direction and that positive, juicy experience with life. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.